Welcome to Smart Money. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Today, we'll talk about mobile learning. Will mobile learning technology replace conventional learning? And mobile learning does seem to have some advantages, including its ability to be able to provide every child, regardless of their financial background, situation, an opportunity to receive high quality education. According to Qooco, a mobile learning solutions provider, the growth will happen in Asia. And this is because mainly noteworthy benefits of mobile learning technology has caused the industry to have impressive growth over the last decade. This industry, which was worth nearly $8 billion in 2015, is expected to be worth over $37 billion by 2020. And amidst of all this, Asia is expected to become one of the largest mobile learning markets in the world, with an expected worth of close to 8 billion ringgit by 2019. So here to discuss this and more is David Topolewski, the CEO of Qooco. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you very much.
Now, before we jump into the whole benefits of mobile learning, let's start with the differentiation that we have right now. In Malaysia, we're particularly familiar with MOOCs. What is the difference between mobile learning and MOOCs?
MOOCs is very widespread and quite passive in learning, and really putting courses online and expecting the students to engage and really self-study. Mobile learning tends to be a lot more interactive, a lot more gamified to drive persistent learning.
Okay, and because of the familiarity of markets like Malaysia consuming education through MOOCs, do you think that the propensity for us to consume through mobile learning is already there?
I believe so. These are really mobile-first markets, whereas you look at Europe and North America, really started out in the PC, but Asia is really a mobile-first market.
And with this in mind, do you think that we already have the consumer? Do you think that this consumer will just continue to grow because of the generally young demography that we have in many Asian countries?
I think that's a very good point. The younger people are definitely a lot more predisposed to learning on mobile, and we're finding that quite a number of them absolutely insist on learning on mobile rather than through conventional books and whatnot. At
what stage is mobile learning at right now? Is it still at the early adopting stage?
I would characterize it as very, very early stages, and I think it's got tremendous growth ahead of it because it is at this early stage, and the capabilities are getting so much better, and the personalization, and if you've got artificial intelligence coming in, which is really going to help tailor content to specific individuals and their challenges, and so I think it's really early stages yet.
If there is one thing that Asians are obsessed with, it's actually certifications and accreditations. Do you think that because of the early stage that we are at now with mobile learning, there is a lot of potential to grow in terms of giving accreditations or awarding such certifications to people who consume education through mobile learning? Yes,
and what we see is it's going to be what we call micro-credentials, or even sometimes nano-credentials, much smaller pieces but and accreditation, but very, very specific, and for the allowing for additional testing and retesting to ensure that those credentials are maintained. It's not just a one-off type of thing. Okay, and so you operate out of China, as I understand it.
Why do you think that try to base out of China would be a critical part in growing your business and also growing mobile learning outright?
A couple of reasons. That China is turning out to be a really fast adopter of mobile technology, and I would say in a number of areas, for example, in messaging with WeChat, they're probably 2 generations ahead of the West. So there's that, and a very ready consumer, and obviously a huge market. And we also operate out in Southeast Asia through a number of offices, so we're not just in China. And I think that's critical because markets are different, and you've got to be local enough to really understand what the specific needs of the consumers are.
You touched a very good point here, because while there is a global opportunity in terms of mobile learning, different markets presents different challenges and different opportunities as well. Within China itself, it's a very highly differentiated market across all the cities, major cities, tier A cities, from Beijing to Shanghai to Guangzhou and so on. What would be the key differentiating factor that you need to focus on, and what do you think the strategy that you need to employ in trying to find the common common ground in all these different markets?
So for example, we have a huge focus on spoken English learning, and we have different models across China. So for example, in your higher tier cities where they've got more disposable income, we can augment that with to a greater degree with teachers. Whereas in say a tier 4 or 5 city where you just don't have that access financially, so it's a lot more focused on what we call machine learning, or man-to-machine learning, so which is much more cost-effective and scalable. So you have to differentiate your offerings, to accommodate the different economics. And I would see, some of the same things happening in Southeast Asia. Obviously, there's different support languages, but also, trying to align with the curriculum, because you're going to get much faster parental adoption if you're aligned with the curriculum. You can always provide more than what the curriculum offers, but you got to, at least meet that at a minimum.
All right, Dave, we'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll learn a little bit more about mobile learning. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani, and you're watching Smart Money. We're talking about mobile learning today, and joining me is David Topolewski, the CEO of Qooco. David, where we left off just now was on language learning, and I just want to carry on this conversation. What would be the impact of language learning among kids here in Asia?
It's actually going to be very, very significant, because one of the big challenges in language learning, particularly in English, which really got started in Japan in the 80s and Korea in the 90s and so forth, is that there has been very little progress in this area. And the reason is the industry has largely been built on once a week learning on the weekend, and it's really never worked. And for language, you need the frequency of practice and timely feedback. And this is why mobile is such a game changer, because you can practice anytime, anywhere, and spend far less time on it and get much better results. So it's really a game changer.
And with some markets, like for instance Singapore and Malaysia, where English is extensively spoken, do you think that there would be opportunities for these kind of markets where English is already prevalent, for them to pick up another language to carry on these benefits of learning language through mobile learning?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have actually a Mandarin program which can do just that, and it's actually designed off of Singapore's curriculum, because it's got a very robust mother tongue policy, and so we've chosen that one as the basis for our Mandarin program.
We've spoken a lot about the upside of mobile learning. There has to be at least a few downside in terms of mobile learning. What do you think would be the key challenges that operators of mobile learning need to overcome?
I'd say there's a couple. One is, just driving engagement, and so, and this is, I think, quite age dependent, because when you've got young kids, like we work with, even preschoolers through primary school and up, but those group, you can't expect them to just self-study magically. So you need that level of engagement, and so what we've been doing is really a teachers plus technology. So the teacher is acting more as a coach and making sure that they're engaged in that. I think there's also challenges if you're just trying to do everything in mobile. You're missing out a socialization aspect, and so this is why we see these small classroom environments where you can do group work and develop your social skills as a youngster, really important as well. And I don't think you can really do that at this point with mobile only.
In fact, that socializing argument has long been the argument for self-schooling. It has been there since the 70s, for that matter, with internet learning, with MOOCs, and now with mobile learning. Do you think that because of this, to counteract this, there has to be some level of balance between school or classroom learning, where they learn to interact with other children, with the supplication or the additional way to learn through mobile learning? There has to be some sort of balance.
Yeah, exactly. We see them as very complementary, and so our business model, for example, primarily in China at this point, has been working with tuition centers, and we provide the practice and the feedback and tons of data for the schools, but we do this every day during the week. And so when the kids come to these tuition centers on the weekend, the teachers are so much better prepared, because they've got all this data rather than just kind of a snapshot once a week, and the students make far more progress. So we see it as really critical to teachers plus technology, and really keeping the needs of the teachers in mind, because it doesn't make sense to throw more work onto them. We want to lighten their load and have them do a better job.
And of course, countries like Malaysia, education is heavily regulated, particularly especially when we want to stick, and there's two reasons for that. Number one is to standardize learning across the country, but number two, this is to ensure that the syllabus doesn't go awry, where you have, religious schools teaching, wayward syllabus. Do you think that you need to strike a good relationship with the regulators here in Malaysia in order for mobile learning to take off?
I think you have to be really supportive of what they're trying to do, and be flexible enough to say, okay, yeah, this isn't, this is appropriate in one country, but it's not appropriate in another country, and make that adjustment for the local market. You can't just say, one size fits all.
And with this in mind, do you think that there is a lot of room for you to start negotiations with, say, for instance, the Minister of Education, with various universities, and so on?
Yeah, I believe so. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
All right, what can we expect from Qooco in the upcoming year, 2018?
Well, we're going to be continuing to develop, and we're going to be putting a lot more AI and personalization into the mobile learning products. A couple of weeks ago, we just wrapped up the Asia Spelling Cup here in Kuala Lumpur, and that was a great success, the best one ever. So we're going to continue that, and you'll be seeing more of that with a lot more participation by Malaysian kids who generally do quite well in the Asia Spelling Cup. So we're excited about that.
All right, David, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I've been speaking to David Topolewski, the CEO of Qooco, but that wraps up this edition of Smart Money. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 501 Awani. And don't forget to download our app on the Google Play and the Apple App Store. I'm Ibrahim Sani. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.